I still remember the exact moment everything changed between me and my roommate, Leo. It was a Tuesday evening in late September. Rain drummed steadily on the window panes, the kind of soft, relentless patter that seemed to make every sound inside our old two-bedroom apartment louder, sharper. I was coming home from the library later than usual. My backpack was soaked, my shoes squelching with water. I unlocked the front door, slipped off my wet coat, and hung it by the entryway. That familiar mix of smells hit me immediately. Old wood, the sharp tang of detergent, Leo's cologne, mingling with whatever I had cooked for dinner earlier. I paused at the threshold of our shared living room. The lights were dim, a single lamp casting soft shadows across the floor. And that's when I heard it, a soft rustling, a subtle sound out of rhythm with the steady rain. My heart skipped a beat. I knew Leo was home. I'd seen his car outside. Carefully, I moved down the hallway toward his bedroom. The noise grew louder now. A sharp intake of breath, bed sheets shifting, curiosity, panic, something else twisting in my chest. I knocked quietly on his door, then opened it just a crack. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Leo, shirtless, curled over the edge of the bed, hands hidden beneath the covers. He was clearly pleasuring himself. For a moment I froze. Then I slammed the door shut and stepped back, my cheeks burning, embarrassment, confusion, something unexpected. I didn't know what to feel. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, my voice low and trembling. "I didn't mean to." He jumped, startled, eyes wide with a mix of shame and confusion. He froze, then sat up, pulling the covers around his waist. "It's fine," he mumbled, though the heat in his face betrayed him. "Go back," he added, waving his hand awkwardly. I didn't go back. Something in me, a mixture of concern, curiosity, something harder to name, stayed. I leaned against the door, heart pounding. After a few seconds, I said quieter, "Do you want me to leave you alone?" He hesitated, voice barely audible. "No." That moment, with the rain pounding, the dim light, Leo looking so vulnerable, changed everything. For the first time, I saw him outside the usual roommate routine. Beyond movie nights, takeout dinners, karaoke weekends, I saw desire, need. And he saw me seeing him. I didn't leave immediately. I sat down on the edge of his bed, maybe 6 feet away. The air was thick, the silence stretching, but neither of us fled. "Are you okay?" I asked. He looked at me, chin tucked, arms wrapped around his knees. "Yes. Just surprised, I guess," he admitted, voice wavering. "I thought I was alone. I'm sorry I intruded," I whispered. "It's not your fault," he said, sitting up a little more, pulling the blanket tighter around him. "Honestly, it's been a while since I've allowed myself to feel like this. To be like this," my heart clenched. I thought I knew Leo, quiet, guarded, studious, carrying the weight of expectations, family, scholarship, the idea of what a good kid should do. He had never spoken about relationships or attraction the way I had. He was tentative, careful. I swallowed hard. "If you want," I said softly, "you don't have to do this alone." He looked at me as though he hadn't even considered that. "Alone?" he asked, almost laughing. "You mean, with me here?" "Yes," I said. My voice shook for reasons I couldn't quite name. "If that helps." He bit his lip, closed his eyes, and I waited. For a moment I thought he would say no. But then he nodded, barely. In that instant I offered my hand. "May I help?" I asked. His eyes opened again, unsure, a little frightened. Something tender flickered in them. "Okay," he whispered. I moved forward slowly. I wasn't sure what to do. This wasn't a script. I placed my hand lightly on the blanket near where he needed comfort. "I didn't cross any boundaries. Is this okay?" I asked. He nodded, emotion so slight I almost missed it. My heart thudded in my chest. I held that moment, the quiet electric hush, the storm outside, our breathing in sync. I leaned in, voice barely a whisper. "Tell me what you want." He took a shaky breath. Under that low lamp I helped, not explicit, but gentle, guided by his words, respecting his boundaries. My heart swelled with compassion, with desire, but mostly with this raw, fragile connection. Later, When he pulled back and wrapped the blanket fully around him, I stayed. He looked at me, really looked, eyes soft and moist. "Thank you," he said, voice small. "Any time," I replied, my voice thick. "You don't have to hide." We sat like that for a long while. The rain softened, the lamp glowed warmly. Neither of us spoke much. But the energy between us had shifted. I saw a courage in him I hadn't noticed before. And I felt something shift inside me, too. This wasn't just roommate co-living anymore. There was affection, possibly more. I'm Adrian, by the way. When we first moved in together, our friendship was just friendly banter, shared chores, and occasional movie nights. Leah was quiet, studious. I was more expressive, always sketching, always talking. He teased me about my art, said I was too dramatic. I laughed and told him he was just jealous. We were good roommates, but I didn't expect this. Over the next few days, we moved around each other more carefully. Every glance carried a suspended moment. I caught him looking at me over his coffee in the morning, sometimes when he thought I wasn't watching. Sometimes our hands brushed, accidental, maybe intentional. My chest fluttered every time. At the same time, Leo seemed restless. He stayed in his room longer. At night, I heard him shifting, holding his pillow close. He seemed distant in the kitchen. When I asked about his classes, I could feel something building inside him, just like inside me. One evening, I invited him to watch a movie. Just like old times, he agreed, though hesitantly. We sat on the couch together, a blanket draped over both of us, close. The film played, but neither of us paid much attention. I noticed his hand near mine. I didn't pull away. Instead, I gently laid my hand over his. He froze, then didn't move it away. His breath caught, quickening. He turned to me, voice hushed. "Adrian, I like you, more than a friend." His words shocked me. Rain started again outside, shadows flickering across the room. He fiddled with the corner of the blanket, avoiding my gaze. "I like you too," I said, voice barely above the movie's sound. Relief washed over me, quickly mixed with guilt. Was this too fast? Was I pressuring him? But he didn't look unhappy. He looked hopeful. We didn't kiss that night. It felt too soon, too overwhelming. But we held hands, leaned in, and rested our heads together. Inside, I wrestled with so many feelings. Fear that I'd misread him, that he'd said what he thought I wanted to hear, shame, his guilt, the awkwardness that could stretch across our shared life. And hope. That shimmering, fragile thing. Leo had inner conflicts, too. He came from a conservative home, had never admitted his feelings, to anyone, not even himself, until that night. He worried about rejection, about judgment, about losing friends. He wondered if his attraction was something to be ashamed of. Yet beneath it all there was longing. Longing for touch, for connection, for someone to accept him exactly as he was, and between us, nights felt electric. Silence spoke volumes. I'd lie in bed at night, listening through the quiet. I could hear Leo's breathing from down the hall. Sometimes I thought I heard him crying. I wanted to go to him, to comfort him, but I was afraid that stepping in might only push him further away. So I waited, listening. One night I couldn't sleep. Instead, I took my sketchbook and drew. Two figures under the rain, reaching out to each other but not quite touching. When it was done, I taped it to the refrigerator. It was anonymous, but I hoped he'd understand. Later that evening, I found him standing there, staring at it. He looked at it for a long time, tracing the paper's edge with his finger. "Did you—" He started. "Yeah," I said, my throat tight. "It's us, I guess, or maybe who I hope we could be." He nodded, voice trembling. "I like it," he said simply. But it felt like everything. Over the next few weeks, things changed between us. The days grew stiller, our quiet moments heavier with unspoken tension. Summer had slipped into early autumn. Leaves turned gold, collecting against the windows. The rain came more often. Inside, the air was warmer. Soft candlelight, shared blankets, the closeness of two people trying to understand what they meant to each other. I wanted to move closer, to deepen what we had. But Leo, still cautious, sometimes pulled away. We'd be watching a movie, and I'd lean in just slightly. He'd freeze, then retreat gently. At night, I'd whisper his name, but he'd excuse himself to his room. I understood. Fear has its own rhythm. One day at school, he was distant. He didn't text back. When I asked if he was okay, he said he was busy. I told myself not to worry, but my heart tightened anyway. Maybe he regretted what happened. Maybe I'd misunderstood him. That evening, I cooked dinner, garlic, onions, something comforting. I set 2 plates and called him upstairs. He came into the kitchen with an unreadable expression. "Food's ready," I said, trying to sound casual. He walked over but stopped halfway. "Adrian," he said quietly, "we need to talk." My stomach sank. "Okay," I managed. He swallowed hard. "I like you. A lot," he said, staring at the floor. "But I don't know if I'm ready for everything. I'm scared. Scared that if I let you in, I'll break or hurt you." "I'm scared too," I admitted. "But I want to try. Only as far as you're comfortable." I reached out, touched his arm gently. "I care about you. If you need time..." He looked up, eyes glistening. He paused. "I've never done this before. Never with someone I actually care about. It's easier to pretend I don't feel this much. Easier to keep things simple." He gave a brittle laugh, the kind that hides pain. That's the thing about fear. It builds walls. Leo had built his to survive. He'd been hurt before, in small but lasting ways. Rejection from a friend he trusted. A cousin's cruel jokes disguised as humor. He carried that weight quietly, even when he thought he'd let it go. I listened. I tried to understand. Then I asked softly, "What does everything mean to you?" He took a deep breath. "Letting someone see me," he said slowly. "Letting someone touch my heart, my truth. Letting someone know what I want, without shame, without hiding. Letting someone love me without me trying to control it." My chest ached. Because I wanted that too. I wanted to be the one he trusted enough to let in. In the days that followed, we drifted between closeness and distance. I gave him space when he needed it. Some nights I'd sketch quietly in the living room. Other times I'd find him curled on his bed, lost in thought. I left him small notes. "Thinking of you. You're brave. I'm here." I didn't want to smother him, just remind him he wasn't alone. One cold evening, we shared a ride home from campus. The car was quiet except for the radio. He shivered, and without thinking, I draped my coat over his shoulders. His arm brushed mine, his breath quickened. "Is this okay?" I asked. He nodded. After a moment, he leaned in, resting his head gently against me. It was a small thing, but it felt like trust. When we got home, he lingered in the hallway, hesitant to part. "I want you in my life," I said softly. "Not just the parts you think are safe." He looked at me for a long time, searching. The lamp cast long golden shadows across the floor. His pulse fluttered at his throat. Then slowly, he stepped closer and reached for me. I closed the gap gently, pressing my forehead to his. Our lips met, soft, trembling, unsure. It wasn't perfect, but it was warm, kind, and honest. He pulled back slightly, eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up, and for being brave enough to try." I smiled, though inside I was trembling too. I had my own battles. I kept wondering, what if I'm not enough? What if his fears become a weight I can't carry? What if he regrets loving someone who's still healing, still learning how to love back? There were fears on my side too, unseen but heavy. Wanting someone so deeply opens you up. It makes you vulnerable. And yet, every time he smiled, really smiled, when he thought I wasn't watching, I felt warm all over. Each time he let me hold his arm or glimpse the softness in his shoulders under the lamp's glow, I felt honored. And with each of those moments, the walls between us lowered just a little more. One night, we sat on the rooftop of our building, stars scattered across the sky. Leo wrapped a blanket around both of us. His hands were cold, so I passed him a cup of hot chocolate. The steam curled between us like breath. He stared at the sky for a long time, then asked quietly, "Why did you stay that night?" He meant the night I'd found him, the night everything began. I smiled faintly. Because I like you. Because I think everyone deserves someone who doesn't run away when they're vulnerable. I paused, then added softly, and because I hoped you might let me in. He turned to me, eyes reflecting the moonlight. For a long moment, I thought he'd retreat again. But then, in a whisper barely louder than the wind, he said, I want to let you in. We kissed again, deeper this time. Still hesitant, but with more certainty. Everything inside me trembled. I could feel his fear, his hesitation, but also his longing. It was tender, real, and it felt like the beginning of something fragile but true. That weekend, Leo told me he wanted to visit his parents. He said he needed a little grounding. I hesitated, wondering if he needed distance instead. But I agreed. I drove him out to the outskirts of town Friday evening, and before leaving, I promised I'd call. The drive home felt strange, like something important was shifting. On Saturday, he texted, Thanks for coming. Something about the message felt distant. I called later. No answer. I left a message, I miss you. I'm here. But silence was all that came back. By Sunday, I couldn't wait anymore. I drove to a cafe near his parents' house, ordered his favorite lavender latte, and watched rain streak the windows. Then my phone buzzed. Can you come by? Simple, direct, my heart clenched. I drove through the drizzle, palms sweating against the wheel. His parents' house was small, warmly lit. His mother opened the door with a polite smile and led me inside. Leo was waiting in the living room. He looked different, tired but calm. There was something firmer in his eyes. We sat on the couch. The house was quiet. Thank you for coming, he said. I'm here because I care, I replied. He nodded, took a deep breath. I've been thinking about us, about how scared I've been of being seen. His voice faltered. At home I feel safe, but also pressured. My mom keeps asking about girlfriends. My dad says I should be further ahead in life. There's this constant expectation. So when I started feeling things for you, it felt like betraying who I thought I was supposed to be. Tears gathered in his eyes, but also a betrayal of what I actually want. I reached for his hand. You can be honest with me and with yourself. He wiped a tear away, then met my gaze. I want to do this with you, all of it, but I need you to know. I have scars. Fear will come back sometimes. I might panic, pull away. I'll need you to remind me it's okay, I nodded. I will, I promise. He studied me for a moment. Then trust me too, he said softly. Trust that I want this, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. My throat tightened. I trust you, he smiled, closing the distance between us. We kissed again, there in the dim light of his childhood home, not loud, not perfect, but real. His hand brushed my cheek. I could taste the rain that had followed me, the sweetness of lavender still lingering on my lips. When he pulled back, he looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. My freckled skin, my art-smudged fingers, my hopeful eyes, he took it all in. Adrian, Leo whispered, being with you. It's the most real thing I've ever felt. All the pressure, the fear, the longing, it had blossomed into that moment. Truth laid bare. Love stepping into the open. We didn't rush beyond where either of us felt safe. We held each other, breathing together, letting the storms of emotion settle. It was intimate without needing anything explicit. Sensual, yes, but in the warmth of trust, in fingers tangling in gentle touches, in quiet acceptance. Afterwards, we talked for hours. About family, about fear, about what it means to love someone when you've never truly been allowed to. He told me about hiding in closets as a child when uncles said cruel things. The first time someone asked if he had a girlfriend and the shame that followed. The nights he cried himself to sleep after seeing homophobic comments online. How he'd been made to feel smaller just for existing. I shared my own scars. Childhood bullying. A cousin who disowned me. Nights I pretended I didn't need more than friends. Slowly, we found common ground. We were more than survivors. We could be builders, builders of love, trust, identity. You've helped me feel brave, he said. Even now I'm scared, but less so. You've always been brave, I told him, tears in my eyes. We left his parents' house together, walking in the rain, umbrellas dripping, him wrapped in my coat. We laughed at how soaked our shoes had gotten. The air smelled of wet earth and new beginnings. We kissed under the glow of streetlights, rain falling around us, not hesitant this time, but mutual, wanted, shared. After that weekend, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Not perfect, there were moments of fear, missteps, doubts, but love began to root quietly and firmly back at our apartment. Mornings felt warmer. I'd wake before Leo, make coffee, watch him sleep, listen to his breathing, the rise and fall of his chest. I sketched him sometimes, his silhouette in the soft dawn light. Once he caught me and smiled. A shy, real smile that crinkled his eyes. He began staying over in my room more often rather than retreating. We fell asleep side by side, hands touching, sometimes awake longer thinking, if only I could stay here forever. We built new routines, Sunday pancakes, Saturday hikes, evening journaling side by side, shared playlists, his classical, mine indie folk. We read aloud to each other, talked honestly about boundaries, desires, and what each of us needed to feel safe. One evening, Leo invited me to dinner with a friend who didn't yet know about us. My heart thudded. Meeting people as his partner meant stepping further into authenticity. We arrived at a cozy bistro, candlelight flickering, soft jazz in the background. His friend was warm and curious. Leo introduced me. "This is Adrian," he said, his voice steady. My heart soared. After dinner, his friend smiled. "I'm glad you're in Leo's life." Nothing dramatic, just kindness. Leo glanced at me and I squeezed his arm under the table. "Thank you," he mouthed. We walked home under amber streetlights, sharing my coat, fingers intertwined. He stopped, looked at me. "I love you, Adrian." "I love you too." "Leo," I said, voice firm, heart unruly. That night, we stayed up talking about the future, a trip we wanted to take, how our families might respond, where we hoped to be emotionally in 6 months. We made plans. We imagined an authentic life together. Growth came gradually. Leo practiced self-compassion. He let me see him cry. Not perfectly brave, sometimes fearful, sometimes doubting. I learned to be patient, to encourage openness gently. I learned that loving someone means sometimes sitting with discomfort, letting silence speak, offering comfort without needing solutions. We healed side by side. Leo sought a counselor, someone knowledgeable about LGBTQ+ experiences, and together, we began learning how to build a love that was real, strong, and ours. I joined him once, offering support. He thanked me for being patient, for seeing him beyond the roommate, beyond the shell he carried. I thanked him in return, for letting me in, for trusting me with scars I didn't even know existed. Emotionally, I grew too. I faced pieces of my own fears, fear of abandonment, fear of repeating past heartbreaks. Leo's trust became a mirror reflecting my worth. I saw in him someone brave enough to choose vulnerability. Loving him made me braver. Loving him made me kinder to myself. Months passed. Autumn gave way to winter. Holidays came and we spent them together. We exchanged gifts. Leo gave me a sketchbook covered in constellations, inspired by a drawing I'd made of him. I got him a simple necklace with a crescent moon, a symbol of the nights we'd watched stars, the nights he had wanted to hide but still looked up. On a snowy evening, we went ice skating at a small town rink. Lights strung overhead, laughter filling the air, breath visible in the cold. Leo slipped. I caught him. We fell together, laughing, lying on the ice and staring at the lights spinning above us. I kissed him. He kissed me back, warm and full of joy, and we went home. Fingers entwined. "You've given me home," he whispered. "You always had one with me," I replied. As our story unfolded, we moved forward, not because everything was perfect, but because we chose each other every day. I graduated. Leo gave a speech at convocation, speaking about courage, personal strength, love, and being seen. I watched from the audience, heart full. Afterwards, under the warm sun, he met me. Tears in his eyes. We kissed. Now we have countless quiet nights together. I find him awake sometimes, scrolling through old photos, maybe tearful. I hold him. He turns to me, whispering, "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," I tell him. "You're brave. You're loved." Sometimes he laughs, sometimes he cries, sometimes he just rests, and I rest with him. When I think back to that rainy night, the night I caught him, the night we shared our first intimate moment, I see now that it was the beginning, not just of physical closeness, but of emotional honesty, healing, and love. This story isn't just about that moment or our first kiss. It's about how true love can emerge in unexpected ways. It's about courage, honesty, patience, and kindness. Love isn't always grand declarations. Sometimes it's sitting with someone in silence after they've opened a painful door. Sometimes it's waiting while they find their voice. Sometimes it's reassuring them, even when you're trembling too. Real intimacy is in vulnerability. Real romance is in trust. I'll never forget the small moments. Leo's fingers trembling when he first let me hold his hand. The tear that escaped when he told me he'd never been allowed to love openly. The warmth of his head against my chest under shared blankets. Our laughter under streetlights in the rain. Those moments built us. We are together now, not as roommates, but as partners. We share dreams, art exhibits, travels, maybe one day marriage if the world allows. We plan to speak with our families from honesty. Some will understand, some will take time. We're okay with imperfect love because our love is real. I see Leo no longer hiding. He walks with shoulders back. His voice is steady. He looks at me when I speak. He uses his pronouns freely. He holds my hand in public. He radiates a light that fear once dimmed, and I see possibilities I once thought out of reach. To be fully myself, seen, loved. Now, when night comes, when the rain drums on the windows and I lie awake, I sometimes remember that first evening. That moment when everything changed. And I smile, knowing it led us here. To this life, this love, this trust. I remember the shame, the vulnerability, the fear in Leo's eyes. And I remember offering my hand and the trust that followed. That moment was small, but it changed everything. We're not perfect. We still have fears. Sometimes I worry I'll hurt him by pushing too hard. Sometimes Leo worries I'll leave or become someone he can't hold on to. But every day we choose to stay. We choose honesty. We choose each other. To anyone out there who feels unseen, who's afraid of being truly known, I hope you find someone who won't run. Someone who listens, who holds your hand, who loves you even when you can't see your own light. You deserve safety. You deserve love. You deserve to be seen. This is our love story. Well, not a fairy tale, but a real one. Because we chose love over hiding. Because Leo faced his shame and let me help him heal. Because I faced my fear and let love in. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for seeing us. And wherever you are, may you find your own courage to love, to trust, to be seen.